Hello, this Hangout on Air is live. I keep getting distracted by that little thing coming up saying Google Hangouts on Air is going away. I got to find something else, if possible, where I could do a thing where I can invite people to do the Hangouts. I know how I can do the webcam Hangouts and people can comment, I can watch answers. But can people join? There's the question. Anyway, I wanted to make the title of this video Neutrality Today, Neutrality Tomorrow, and Neutrality Forever, Iran. But it was too long of a title, so I just put Neutrality Forever, Iran. Politics, government, history, the videos I like to do. Now, have you ever wanted to drink a beer that was very bland and dull? Oh, let me send a link to those guys. Those guys. Copy. And paste. And paste. Now we're ready to roll. We are rolling. Okay. Listen here now. We've been hearing about Iran since I was 11 years old. This beer is so bland. Daytime IPA. So-called IPA from Lagunitas. Now I like Lagunitas Heineken. I like Lagunitas Heineken. I have given most of their beers good scores. You know that. You know that. I know that. The American people know that. However, some of these are dull and bland and boring and not to mention drab. What's that big one they have in the purple can? The big purple can? The big purple can. Boring. Sam 76. Boring. This thing here. Boring. Dull. Thin. 4% alcohol. Wow. It used to be 4.65. Not that strong. They made it way weaker. Used to have 51 IBUs. Now it's 31. Or was it 54? Whatever. They made it way weaker. I know what you're gonna say. Oh, but you drank all I hate your channel. I watch it all day long. I hate your channel. I hate you. I watch it all day long. It's the first thing I watch in the morning. It's the last thing I watch before I go to sleep. I hate your channel. Okay, fair enough. And you're gonna say, oh, you buy a 30-pack of Milwaukee's Best Light and make a video for the beers. They're dull. They're drab. True. This is so true. They're also $16 a 30-pack. This ain't. See the difference? Is this better than Milwaukee's Best Light? No, it isn't. It has more pine flavor. Has more hops. A lot of hops. Thin body. I don't like these daytime IPAs. And they're getting less IPA-ish as the seconds tick by. If you like thin and watery, this is something for you. And if you like paying a lot more than you should for it, this will be something wonderful and you'll love it. And I'm proud of you and I support you in that. And all these companies are making thin, super light, super low ABV, higher than adequate or reasonable prices for them. Okay, all right. Enough rant and rave. Okay. It won't be Iran that I'm talking about that's going to make people angry. It's the beer, that, because that's important. No one cares about your geopolitical worries. We worry about important stuff like beer. I understand that. Well, let's just say that geopolitics, international affairs, foreign relations, national defense, let's just say for the sake of argument that it's important, or even more important than beer, wine, or liquor. You say, how can you say that? Okay. Well, we've been hearing about Iran since I was 11 years old because in 1979, I was trying to watch the Saints at Packers game live from Milwaukee. Oh, but the game got interrupted. This is a CBS News special report. I see this mob charging into the U.S. Embassy, capturing hostages. And I'm thinking, what's going on? When are they going to put the game back on? My mother came in the room and she said, this is not good. Iran, this is not good. Well, she was older than 11, obviously. So she knew more about that. But I didn't know. I said, ooh. Craig Swenson says, 12th and never, nothing special. Oh, right. That's what's called 12th and never. Yeah. So dull. Oh, so very dull. Mario Rojas said, we should worry about geopolitical tensions. It's theater. Subject Zero says, we might be on the brink of World War III, but I've got my Miller High Life. Oh, no, I'm out of beer. I'm going to get some water in a minute. Okay, look. So I say, oh, I don't know anything. I'm 11 years old. So I start watching NBC News, CBS News. I used to watch CBS mostly. That's the way it is. I'm Walter Cronkite, and that's the way it is. CBS Evening News. And I didn't know. So, you know. And then CNN started in 1980. So I figured it's on the news. I'll watch it, whatever they say. So they say Iran did this. Iran did that. Iran was bad. What do I know? Oh, Alex is joining.
What's up, Ron?
I watched the interview. I watched Interview the Viewer. You were featured in an interview.
Yes, I was, and I enjoyed that. I hope to do another one.
Okay. Well, folks, Alex is a famous guy, and he's joining my videos, and I appreciate that. But he's going to watch me talk about Iran, and then he can interject anything he knows about it if he'd like. Look. So they come on the TV. Iran is this. Iran is that. They're bad. They're bad. They're a bunch of radical this and that, Shiites and all this. So I'm thinking, well, it must be terrible then if CBS says it and Jimmy Carter. So then, well, we're not going to go through that whole scenario. We know what happened. They held the hostages until Ronald Reagan, his inauguration day. They let the hostages go. There may have been an October surprise. Lyndon LaRouche Society was the first one to reveal that so-called October surprise, and then other people start talking about it. Okay. But so now here we are, 2019, 40 years later, and we see on Fox War Network, I meant to say Fox News Network, Communist News, I mean to say CNN, or was it Cable News Network, Marxist, Socialist, what is it called? MSNBC, and all these other networks. All right. Iran is bad. They're bad. And the Israeli prime minister says they're bad. Oh, well, they must be bad if he says it. And Lindsey Graham says they're bad. And he wants to bomb them. Just bomb them so badly, those Iranians. And so I say, oh, this must be an evil country. It must be so powerful. It must be just like this world empire, Iran. So last 40 years, I start reading, I start studying, I start trying to learn. I think it's a good idea to learn. All right, here's some more comments. Nuclear arms doesn't exist. Global warming is the new nuke. What are you talking about? Iran is one of the few countries that doesn't have their central bank controlled by the banksters. Oh, I see where you're going. All right, worst false flag in 2019. Okay. They're a bunch of sheep. And then he says, Iran war deja vu, says Dennis Day. Doesn't it? I mean, Iraq war. Don't it remind you of 2003, 2002, 2003? Mario Rojas says, and that number is shrinking. Trump pulled the card by saying he was attacking and then retracting. Genius. Okay, all right. We don't want to get too like convoluted and corrupted or whatever. So we say Iran. Okay, let's look at Iran. Well, let's go back to the ancient world, the Persian Empire. The Persian Empire, they stretch from India all the way to Greece. They're the ones that conquered the Babylonian Empire, the empire of the Medes and the Persians. Oh, they were so scary. Well, at that time, they really were an empire with their ships and their bows and arrows and their chariots and their Xerxes and their Artaxerxes. Well, so they almost conquered Greece and they failed. Then they tried again and they failed again. Greece. When you think world power, you don't really think Greece. All right, but anyway, so they failed. Last time they ever. Now, when's the next time Iran won a big? Persia is what we call them, Persia, but they call themselves Iran, land of Aryans, or if you want to translate it, land of white people. True story. All right, so and then those Aryans went across the Khyber Pass into India and set up the caste system. We know about this. Another story, not going to talk about it today. And why in 47 straight says, and why in 2019 with all this high definition, is all the proof still composed of grainy video? And then Mario says, because GoProp still sucks no matter what year. Okay. So the Persian Empire got destroyed by the Hellenic Empire. You know, the Macedonians, the Greeks, Alexander the Great, setting up Heliopolis and all that. The Sun King, the Sun God, Alexander the Great. I am a god. I am a sun god. And then he died at 33 with fever, and he was no god. So his empire was divided up. So then we have the later Persians, Sassanids, and all these people fighting against the Romans fighting again against them, fighting against the Romans fighting again, right along the Tigris-Euphrates River. They go a little bit west, the Romans will go a little bit east. They go a little bit west, the Romans go a little bit east. Exhausting themselves, bankrupting themselves. The Roman Empire got weak to a large extent, certainly not the only reason, many reasons. And they went downhill. The Iranian Empire went Persian. How you doing, Alex?
What's up, man? I'm sorry, my iPad keeps cutting out, but I just fixed it, so we'll see what happens.
Okay. So then the Iranians are around, you know, and their empire was really not too big. It stretched from the Tigris and Euphrates over to the Indian border, and then from, well, what became Russia today, down to the Persian Gulf, the Iranian Gulf. You say, well, that's the same boundaries as now. Yes. Used to go a little bit further north, but then the Russian Empire took a lot of their land from them forever. Azerbaijan and all that area. Oh, no one cared about Iran. No one cared about Iran. No one cared about Persia. Nobody cared about Iran. Hold on, I'll be right back.
Okay.
Now, they were different than the Arabs because they weren't Arabic. And secondly, they were Shiite Muslims as opposed to the Sunnis in Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and all these areas. Okay. So they don't like each other. Always fighting, always arguing, kind of like Catholics and Orthodox. But they didn't work a peace treaty like the Catholics and Orthodox did in 1969. And, you know, at that time period on excommunicating each other. Oh, you know, Shiites and Sunnis dislike each other more than Bama and Auburn. Okay. No one worried about Iran, to say Iran or Persia. I have an old map from the 1920s, still say Persia on it. It's hanging on my wall. Beautiful map. Color. Well, they bought rugs from Persia, you know, those beautiful Persian rugs, which can cost thousands of dollars. They're handmade and they'll last literally like hundreds or even 1,000 years with a lot of heavy foot traffic. Okay. Now, World War I comes along. We know that war, Germany versus England. Germany and all their tag-along people, in England and all their tag-along people. England had more tag-alongs like their junior partner, the United States of America, their wayward child, who you say, don't you start that. We broke away from England, damn you. Oh, that's right, the Revolutionary War. I'm sorry. Even though the United States has been curiously attached to Great Britain ever since in their foreign policy. So, but why bring up these details? Why do you always bring up these troubling details? I'm sorry, I can't help it. World War I comes along. For security reasons, you understand, security reasons, the British and the Russians occupy Persia, which they had been occupying off and on for years because the Persians decided they didn't really want Great Britain ruling them, even though the British wanted to take them over because of tobacco production. But Iran was weak. The great Iran empire that we hear about on CNN and Fox all day long, the British walked in and took them over, occupied them. And then the Russians did this in World War I. And so they had to take it because they're weak. Yeah. Resist. And then oil. Oh, oil was discovered in Iran, Persia, Iran, oil. So then they have the British Iranian Oil Company set up. What was it called? Aramco or something? Can't remember. Doesn't matter. So the British are there. They have their oil industry. Iran is subject to their national security interests. Now I'm going to read some comments, Alex, and you can talk if you want.
Hey, Ron, what are you really talking about? Like Iran, like how the wars started and stuff like that?
Yeah, up till today. I'm bringing it up till today. Now, Mario says, just look at the interview the Shah had it with 60 Minutes with Mike Wallace and see the reasons why he was killed. But, oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. He said the wrong thing to the wrong people, right? Right. Then all of a sudden he got cancer of the screen.
I never heard of him, Ron. Who's Mike Wallace?
Was a famous guy on 60 Minutes.
Oh, okay.
His son, Chris Wallace, is on Fox.
Oh. I wonder if he's related to George Wallace.
I'm pretty sure he's not. All right.
Just curious.
No. All right. Subject. Neither. He's not related to Ben Wallace. All right. Subject 0. Unless Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, or Tulsi Gabbard becomes president, we are likely going into another prolonged war. Bernie Sanders, you really think he's going to make peace with Iran? Okay. Some evidence would argue against that. All right. Mario says, Ronald, what's your opinion on the Anunnaki? Anunnaki? Look at the interview when the Shah is mentioning the Zionists. No wonder they took him apart. Well, you see, the Shah had a lot of problems. Like you're jumping ahead of where I'm talking about. Now he's talking about the black cube, and then let's get off of all of that. I don't want to really get into that because that's like non-germane to the topic. You know what I'm saying?
Basically, hey, Ron, you're going to basically save that for another video, whatever that person was asking you.
Right. And secondly, I had that problem with one of the beer reviewers. He would like jump on my Facebook page, but then he would always bring up like these straw man arguments, which were meant to redirect the conversation to something else. He would say, well, you know, the Crusades, and then they would all argue for 6 hours about the Crusades. And I was like, well, my post wasn't about the Crusades, but he would always do that. And then he got mad. He said, you're erasing my comments just because I don't agree. I said, wrong. You don't have to agree. I said, I'm erasing your comments because they're not germane to the topic. You always try to redirect the argument, and you can go to somebody else's Facebook page and do that, right? Eventually he stopped commenting. He was always welcome. He could do it today. I don't mind. I don't dislike him. We're still nominally friends anyway. Okay, so now we go to World War II. So there's Iran minding their business. They had shahs or emperors. You say, but if you have an emperor, isn't it supposed to be an empire? An empire, one country that rules other countries? Well, yeah, technically, but that's just what they called it, the Empire of Iran. But it's really a kingdom, just a nation state. The Iranian people controlled by the Iranian government. It was no kind of great empire. And frankly, it hasn't really been an empire since Alexander the Great busted them up. You know, he really gave them a hard time. Now, okay, but so the British want to get oil from Iran, and they were happy to do it. And Russia was interested in kind of like maybe controlling Iran. And then Russia and Great Britain were in this conflict called the Great Game, where Russia was trying to go as far south toward the Indian Ocean and Persian Gulf as they could. And the British were trying to go as far north as they could into Afghanistan and the other stands to block the Russian Empire. Because Great Britain and Russia had been in a conflict since 1815 upon the defeat of Napoleon Bonaparte and the French Empire, which the Russians and the British are still in a conflict today. And like I said, the British junior partner, the United States, has joined that conflict since 1944. Okay, so a lot of the Iranians did not like the Shah, the Pahlavis, because they felt like they were puppets of the British. So there was a resentment against the Pahlavis, and they say, no, these people are they give in to the British too much because they just want to make money and get a piece of the action. And so there was a lot of resentment. When World War II broke out, you know, the Russians and the British invaded Iran and said basically, well, look, you could fight back and we'll destroy your country, or you could just let us occupy your country and we won't destroy it. So Iran figured, well, discretion is the better part of valor. So the Russians occupied North Iran and the British occupied South Iran until the end of the war. Now, this is a true story. You can look it up. Hold on. But I mean, I don't have to back that up. Everybody knows that. Hold on. I wanted to reheat. I wanted to start preheating the oven because of this stuffed artichoke. Okay, so yeah. So after the war, they left Iran. The British and the Russian. Well, the British didn't exactly leave Iran, but so then the Americans are very paranoid. The United States and the British are very paranoid about Iran becoming friends with Russia. Well, what happens if they become friends with Russia? We want that oil. You know, it's very dangerous. So Iran became sort of like a victim, if you want to call it, or a focus of international politics, the Cold War, which started, we know, in 1944. Okay. 47 Strait said, I would like to visit Iran someday, but just no hiking. Right. Right. Mario says, if you control the Hormuz Strait, you control 1/3 of all seaborne oil. Yes, very important. So, there was this guy, Mohammad Mossadegh, and he revolted against the Shah, tried to set up a more constitutional republic and maybe make friends with Russia. But the CIA and the British intelligence agency say, oh, no, 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 no. So he was overthrown because once Mossadegh came into power in 1951, if you ever notice in world history, when these people revolt against the United States, then all of a sudden there's rebels everywhere. So just like clockwork, now there's rebels. And Mossadegh is overthrown and the Shah is put back into power, and he's a client of the United States, British axis, if you want to call it that. Okay. So he's a very eccentric person. He got married a number of times, had all these children. He is extravagant, has an extravagant lifestyle like an Oriental emperor would, like King Solomon of Israel and these kind of things. So Bricks Lens says Obama made beer in the White House. Yes, that's true. Not germane to the topic, but anyway, so yeah, 2 words, White House. Okay, so thanks for watching, Bricks. So there was a lot of resentment in Iran. So then there was the religious Iranians. They don't like it because they say the Shah is too worldly. He's too materialistic. He only cares about women, wine, good times, movies, fancy cars, and he's living a good life on the coattails of Great Britain and America. He's a puppet. And so they resent him. Maybe most Iranians didn't care either way. But there was that religious faction, the strict is a Shiite faction, and they, you know, they have their leader Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, who started making all of these cassette tapes in France. And interestingly, France allowed him to stay there. French are supposed to be a Western ally, but whatever. So you still there, Alex?
Yeah, I'm still here. It just keeps crashing. I'm sorry.
That's okay. He's having technical.
Trying to...
Well, that's okay. At least I'm not boring you. Okay, maybe I am. The Shah's popularity really started to go downhill in the 60s and 70s, and they had a modernistic government, kind of like the United States, a social democratic government, except it wasn't very democratic, but that's, but it was socialistic in a way, welfare state, strict controls of the media and all of this, and women in bikinis and racy magazines and commodities, McDonald's and whatnot. Elizabeth Taylor visited there in 1976, and they say, look, Elizabeth Taylor, famous American actress visiting Iran, all these things. But a lot of the Iranians resented that because they felt like American influence is corrupting Iran. They say America has pornography, America has loose morals, America has these wayward ideals. So that's in their mind, that's what America represents. Loose living, immorality, whatever. And plus, they just don't like, they feel like they're dominated. So they grew up. Now, I know what Mario was talking about, the Shah making those impertinent comments on 60 Minutes. It is true that after those comments were made, you can put the timelines together, and things did seem to escalate pretty seriously against the Shah in Shah. He got cancer and he died in 1980, but he was overthrown in 1979. There were revolts breaking out all over Iran with these zealots, these Muslim Shiite zealots, and he decided he's going to go on a goodwill tour. That's a nice way of saying I'm getting out of town before I get killed. So the Iranians overthrow him. The rebels, I should say, overthrow him in 1979, early 79. And they set up a progressively radical government. Now, many Iranians may not have liked the Shah, but then it's kind of like Cuba. They didn't like Batista, but now they get a way worse. Like you take a government you don't care for, and now you get something way worse. So they get rid of a bad government and get a way worse government, much more restrictive, much more intolerant, much more religious, zealous, and everything. Of course, that doesn't really. When you're taking our viewpoint, the neutral viewpoint, well, I say neutrality today, neutrality tomorrow, and neutrality forever, it shouldn't matter, because what does Iran's internal operations have to do with the United States? Well, if you take a non-interventionist, neutral, anti-war viewpoint, it has nothing to do with us. You would simply say, well, we'll trade with you. We'll sell you ground meat, and you can sell us oil. And it's a fair trade. But you see, the United States, as we know, since 1940, under Franklin Delano Roosevelt, has been very involved in foreign affairs and believes in intervening in foreign affairs, and is, with Great Britain, the British Empire, the self-appointed police of the world. So if you're going to be the cop of the world, then you're going to arbitrate these things. You're going to determine who's good and who's bad. And sometimes you might switch. You might determine the good guy's bad tomorrow, whatever. Okay, so the United States almost had a war with Iran in 1980. But Jimmy Carter was reluctant to go to war. He didn't seem to know what to do, really. He tried to launch a rescue mission in 1980 that failed. And he lost to Ronald Reagan in the presidential election. We know that. And so Reagan, the hostages were freed upon his inauguration. Now, there's some question if there was some skullduggery behind the scenes there involving George Herbert Walker Bush. That's an interesting story. The October surprise, interesting story. I don't want to get into that. Do I believe it? I don't know. I don't necessarily believe it. But I didn't say I disbelieved it either. So the United States has had an anger against Iran since 1979. Although before November 79, well, let's say February 79, the United States was considered Iran an ally, an unofficial ally. We didn't have a formal alliance with Iran, just like we don't have a formal alliance with Israel, Tel Aviv, Jerusalem. Well, Israel and Iran are deadly enemies. And Israel is very angry now because they say Iran is a bad country because they want to get nuclear weapons. And we want to make sure they don't have the right to have nuclear weapons. And we want to make sure they don't have the capacity to even have, in other words, they've gone a step further, not even have the ability to perhaps build nuclear weapons. So they want total non-nuclear ability. Now, Iran's position is, no, you and the United States are in cahoots. You have a great influence in the United States media, economy, and all that. And so you have nuclear weapons yourself, but yet you've determined for some arbitrary reason that we cannot. But yet Iran's statement is that we're not looking to get nuclear weapons anyway. We only want nuclear energy. Once again, going back to the neutrality today, neutrality tomorrow, neutrality forever paradigm or worldview, we're saying the United States should have no involvement. So people are asking me, what is my position? What do I think about Trump in Iran? People ask me this. I say, well, I don't agree with Trump because it's not the job of the United States to, number one, patrol the Straits of Hormuz with our Navy, Army, Air Force, Marines, or Coast Guard. Iran wants to sell oil to us. The United Arab Emirates wants to sell oil to us. Kuwait, Iraq, Bahrain, Oman, all want to sell oil to us. So I'm sure they're going to make sure. Oh, Saudi Arabia, I forgot them, want to sell oil to us. So they're going to do that. Thirdly, the United States should not have a position for or against Iran. So the United States should not be putting sanctions on Iran because of their nuclear power development. The United States should have no involvement in that. So fourthly, the United States should only be pursuing free trade as much as that's possible, and fair trade and amicable relations with the Islamic Republic of Iran. So this is my position. I don't agree with Trump. I did vote for him in 2016, but I don't agree with his policy. I would call it policy of aggression against Iran. And someone mentioned John Bolton, who has a history of jingoism. Let's see. Let's see here. Oh boy, got a lot of comments. Mario says Bolton is a warmonger with a bad mustache. Well, I don't care about his mustache. I have a beard that needs to be trimmed. So that's irrelevant. He is a warmonger, I agree. Wasn't there some connection between Germany and Iran, Iraq oil that contributed to the start of World War I? No, not really. Germany was interested in making friendly relations with Iraq, but the British were dead set against that. And when Germany tried to build a railroad from Baghdad to Kuwait, the British hurried up and made Kuwait a protectorate, blocked the railway, so then they could only build it from Berlin to Baghdad, the capital of Iraq. And then that never really materialized because of the outbreak of World War I. But it didn't really contribute to the start of it. That was just a sideline conflict. I'm sure, well, of course it didn't help, but it wasn't the main reason. Ronnie says Iran's first democracy was overthrown by the English-American connection in 1953, right, when Mossadegh was overthrown. They got their revenge in 1979, and they've been at odds ever since. This is the truth. Yes, Ronnie's correct. Glib Talk says, I was in the Navy on the USS Kidd, which was made for Iran. We kept it and said, F your down payment. Yeah, and then the Kidd was attacked, right? In let's see, what was attacked? That was the Stark. I'm thinking of the Stark, right? In 87 by Iraq. That was a strange story. It could have just been a mistake because there was a lot going on out there. The Iran-Iraq War, 80 to 88. The Kidd is a destroyer. That's the new Kidd. There's an old Kidd from World War II that's in Baton Rouge. I can't keep up. United States did, interestingly though, keep selling, what was it, Chrysler cars to Iran until 1988, I think. During all of this trouble, they were still able to buy like, can't remember, it was like Dodge Monaco or Plymouth, Dodge Diplomat cars up until 88. Like they just kept buying American cars. So it's strange. We have this total non-interaction with Iran, but they're still buying American cars because they liked American cars. Let's see. Ronnie says, I'm getting to this late, so I have to watch the replay, but I would like to take part in future videos if possible. Well, it's always possible, Ronnie. You're always welcome. Maybe you can let us know you're doing it beforehand. I really was thinking about it for a week, but I wasn't realizing that I could do it till this morning until an hour ago because I had things going on. Those worked out, so it was kind of late notice for me even. And I hate that, but it really was. Sometimes I just got to fit these in, you know. Iran got radicalized by the Saudi Islamists, which are on the same team with the people that are in power, says Mario. Well, you see, that's not true because Saudi Arabia is Sunni radicals, the Wahhabis, and Iran is the Shiites, and they can't stand each other. Plus, Saudi Arabia is Arabic speaking, and Iran is Persian, so they don't like each other. Ronnie says Iran hates Saudi Arabia. Actually, that's the main rival in the Middle East, right? Big question is it for oil? Because oil might be abiotic. All Muslims are. Yeah, I don't want to get into all that. That's why we got to moderate the comments, I guess. Keep it on a sensible thing. Much as
Hey, Ron, I don't think you have moderators on your comments, do you? Because I look at them and there's no moderators like Blue Wrenches.
I think Eric is. Eric, Frauenfelder, and John Anile.
Yeah, they have them.
And then Mario's talking about Albert Pike. Well, yeah, Albert Pike. And it's funny because in New Orleans, they took down all the Confederate statues except one Confederate general statue. Albert Pike, a Confederate general, his statue is still there. Think about that for a minute.
Hey, Ron. Yeah. Hey, Ron, when they were talking about taking the statues down, I was scared that they were going to take Huey Long's statue down, actually, too.
Well, they're not going to do that. He was a left-wing guy, and he's a socialist, so they wouldn't do that. They would probably favor him. Although he didn't like Roosevelt because he wasn't radical enough. So, no, I don't think I have to worry about a Huey Long statue going down. We saw crisis in Iran. I hope they honored the warranty, says 47 Straight. Ronnie says, who's Albert Pike? Well, Ronnie, you look up Albert Pike, you'll learn a lot about morals and dogma, and it'll help explain a lot of things, I'm afraid. I'm really afraid. I shouldn't have said that name. Okay, now, now we have 2019, we've got Trump. He doesn't know what to do because he wants to be like me, non-interventionist, make friends with Russia, make friends with Iran, make friends with China. That was his platform, and that's why I supported him. But he's surrounded by your Boltons and your what's the guy's name with the P? I can't think of his name. Getting confused. You know, all these neoconservative guys, these interventionists, you know the type, and they're saying bomb them, you know, bomb them, because war is peace and peace is war, and those guys like Bolton and the Secretary of Defense, can't think of his name. It's on the tip of my tongue. Doesn't matter. They believe in peace through war. They believe that peace in the world can be brought forth through the projection of American power, war, imperial. Well, they're imperialists. They're like Rudyard Kipling, who was the, I guess you call it the poet of imperialism, and Cecil John Rhodes, and all these people. And they say this is how we can have the millennium, you know, the world, 1,000 years of peace. American British power around the world. Liberal democracy. And if these people won't go along with it, then they'll have to be rectified to some extent through whatever means necessary. And so that's the situation we have in Iran today. Now, I don't know if Trump is wary or aware of the situation. I should say aware of the situation. He's probably wary with these people. He might realize he might be like me. Trump might be like me, but he's in a pickle that he's got to somewhat placate the Boltons, the Lindsey Grahams, used to be the John McCains of the world, but that warmonger died. Those types of people, and maybe through back channels or a careful balancing act, still try to make peace with Iran, Russia, China, and avoid the war, the warfare state, the welfare state, the empire. I don't know. There's different possibilities or realities. He could just be dumb and not know what's going on. He could be a Jedi Knight and realize what's going on, but he's trying to play it very carefully and use Jedi mind tricks on Pompeo, that's the name, Pompeo and the Boltons and the Hillary Clintons, the warmongers of the world. Now, a lot of Democrats, I'm friends with Democrats, liberal, you say, you're a registered Democrat. This is true. You know, but I'm talking about the, you know, those Democrats, your Roosevelt, Truman, Kennedy, Johnson, Clinton Democrats. The ones who believe in the dropping the atom bombs on the civilians to bring peace in the world. You know, those type. Baiting countries to fight and all that. Okay, so they're on Trump's case. You know, CNN, MSNBC, even Fox to an extent is saying Trump is weak. He doesn't want to stand up for America. So he might, I don't know, he might manage it. On the surface, I'm saying Trump is wrong because he should be trying to make peace with Iran and not attack them and try to bait them into attacking and making them seem so bad. Okay. The reality of the situation is he might realize what's going on. He might be in agreement with what I'm saying, but he's trying to balance it to where he can stay in office and at the same time not wind up in a Dallas, Texas, November 1963 type situation. So you can't make peace if you're not around, you see. So he's dealing with he knows he's dealing with very dangerous people. He said he was going to drain the swamp. He was dealing with the deep state. He knew he was dealing with very insidious people. So a lot of what he does, the goofy man act, you know, Nixon played the madman part. Trump's act could just be the goofy man act, you know, loud, obnoxious, ridiculous, a clown, but it could all be an act. I think it's an act. I think a lot of the international socialist, imperialist media knows it's an act, and which is why they hate him so much, because they realize, you know, it's not an act. It's for, you know, the act is an act, but he's not an act. You understand? So it's a balancing act. He doesn't have a lot of power. Congress doesn't like him. His own party doesn't generally like him. So there's not a whole lot he can do to make peace. But we'll have to see. We'll have to reserve judgment. We don't want to be quick to jump on him. I think he played a very careful balancing act with Syria. Yes, they did bomb Syria with missiles, but I think that was mostly a show. I think they contacted Syria beforehand and said, we're going to shoot these missiles at this thing, make sure no one's around. And it was a staged event. I think he favors Bashar al-Assad. I think he favors Putin in Syria, honestly. He's not like Clinton, you know, and that gang with their very deceitful and evil animosity towards Russia and those other countries. So you have to watch that. I think it'd be very interesting to see what Trump does. He might shock the world this next year and go visit Iran. He might pull a Nixon, you see, and show up in Tehran and make a non-aggression pact, which Nixon did. He shocked the world with his China policy. And that was even more reason that the establishment wanted him out of the way. Because remember, Nixon said in the early 70s, I want to end the Cold War and work to get rid of nuclear weapons. True story. Well, you know, all of a sudden he's got to go away, away, away. Trump, he seems to have the same goals. The establishment will not tolerate this man. Okay. Ronnie S. says, what Trump campaigned on, he mostly did not do, unfortunately. By the end of 2017, he had surrounded himself with neocon yes men who have their own agenda. I realized that, but it might have been so he could watch them more than entertain them. You see what I'm saying? Could it be the case that he's just a fool and he has no sense? Yes. This could be the case. But could it be the case that he's playing the fool and he's surrounding himself with these men so he can watch these maniacs, these warmongers, sick maniacs, and keep them under control? This could be. Mario says either Trump is in on it because of the Jesuit connection or he is our savior. Right, right. So he's either, we will find out. He said the other day he was neither a dove nor a warmonger. Instead, he was someone with common sense. That was interesting. See, I think, you see, if you watch him very carefully, he sends oblique messages. You see, he's like Obi-Wan Kenobi, like he's trying to be very careful. And he's fighting a very evil empire. You see, you can't. He's got to be very careful. The Syria bombing was probably a staged event to placate the warmongers in Congress. I think that's right, Ronnie. Now, everyone thinks Nixon was so bad and he never gets credit for trying to bring peace to the world. LBJ was a lot worse. Well, because LBJ was part of the, the New Deal establishment, Woodrow Wilson, Franklin Roosevelt, imperialistic, international finance, capitalism, banking, imperialism, all of that. So Nixon was sort of an outsider, remember? He really wasn't liked back into the late 40s. He was raised in a kind of a lower middle class environment. He wasn't from an elite family. He went to just an ordinary college, Whittier College. So Nixon was always looked on with a kind of a bad eye. And he said things on those private tapes, which he curiously recorded. Remember, he kept recording those things up until July, what was it, July 73? And he made some very curious comments about Bohemian Grove and all these things. So, Nixon might have known what what the deal was, but he had, when you get advice from people like John Dean, when you get advice from people like John Dean, you may not realize you're being set up, if you dig what I'm saying. And Trump is very, he seems paranoid, like he doesn't trust who he's surrounded by. There's a good reason not to be trustworthy. So he's very wary. Have I passed judgment on Trump? No. Have I made a decision on Trump? No. Have I decided what I'm going to do in 2020? No. Am I convinced about Trump? No. But could we be dealing with a Jedi Knight who has infiltrated the empire in a very high position within the empire? Yes, this could be the key to the riddle. This we do not know. But what we're saying here on the outside on this obscure YouTube channel is we're saying we do stand for peace. We do stand for neutrality. We do stand for non-intervention. We do not support these terrible wars that America has chosen, I might add, chosen, not forced into, chosen to become involved with since 1898, 1917, 1941, 1950, 1964, 1990, all throughout the 90s, really, 2003. We know what's going on. We don't support these evil things. Sorry, we do not support them. Never shake his hand with those. Yeah, well, let's watch. You got to watch what you say, because certain Marxist-Leninist entities within these platforms will use comments as a way to get rid of people they don't like, who aren't supporting the empire, the establishment. You see what I'm saying, Mario? This is not the time. We have to be implicit in what we say at this present time, not explicit. This is why many people have found themselves unavailable, because they have been too explicit in their language at this particular time. Okay? You have to be careful. Wise as a serpent, but gentle as a lamb. Jesus, our God, said this. Jesus said this to his followers. Be wise as a serpent, but gentle as a lamb. This is what we must be. This is not the time. Now, one day there will be the time. Right? One day it will be the time. This is not the time. Not the time. Okay. Mario said, respect from Hong Kong, Ronnie. Well, welcome to you in Hong Kong. And I had 6 Yang Jing beers. Sorry, man. Okay, so the beer was affecting the posting. Yeah, I understand. But we gotta be wary. Okay, so do you have anything to add, Alex? I know this is not really your area, but
no, but I'm enjoying the history. I really am enjoying it, because I love my history, as you know. Yeah. I do like Reagan. I do like all these things you're talking about. I'm trying to comprehend on my head,
Right. Right, yeah, right. So what I'm saying here is we want peace with Iran, trade with Iran, friendly relations with Iran, no war, no war, no war. It can be done, but Trump realizes he's dealing with a very dangerous enemy.
Yep.
He's not people to play games with. He realizes that. I'm trying to tell you people, this I didn't say was, I say maybe, probably is an elaborate act. And it could have been going on since the 1980s, because if you look at Trump's video interviews back into the mid 80s, he was saying the same thing you're saying now. The media used to like Trump when he was a clown and did wrestling, and he was hanging out hobnobbing with the Clinton family. And all. He was adored by the media. That all changed with the birth certificate issue, and he had to come out to some extent and let people know that he was working against the empire, or he'd never get any support. So, but he had to leak it out in a very careful and balanced way. Now, when I watched his interview with 60 Minutes, he was sending out oblique messages of what he wanted to do. And I picked up on those vibes very carefully. And I said, oh, I said, he's going to catch unholy hell now, because he made some very interesting statements. He said, I think the United States should have a policy of I'm not quoting, I'm paraphrasing, a non-biased policy, or in other words, the United States should not be taking sides in the Arab-Israeli conflict. And I thought, oh, when was the last time I heard a presidential candidate say the United States should not explicitly or implicitly support Israel in the Arab-Israeli conflict? Never. I said, watch tomorrow. There'll be a full-on hate Trump movement, and there was.
Hey, Ron, is your food done? Because I thought I heard a bell just ring.
Preheating is done. I'm going to get off to go start heating that up. But thanks for watching this video production, people. Remember, we said at the beginning of the video, and we're saying it now, neutrality today, neutrality tomorrow, and neutrality forever. Thanks for watching.
Ron, before you go off.
Downward war. What?
Do you want to join on KBS tonight? Because I'm going to have John and all them on, I think, with
what time?
I don't know. I think 8 o'clock. I think. I'm not sure.
I don't have any more KBS. And the second part is I'd like to lay down and watch the College World Series. It's a crucial.
I'm sorry, because I know you wanted to do that with me. So
I did, but it just didn't work out. I didn't know when it was going to ever happen, so I ended up drinking my last bottle of KBS.
Well, there's always another time. Don't worry.
Yeah, I get 2020 KBS, you know. So, all right. Well, thanks for watching this video production, folks, and thanks, Alex, for joining as an observer.
I'll talk to you later, man. All right, bye.
I'm pointing at you, Alex. I'm pointing at you. All right, thanks, folks.